Heading into tonight's TLC pay-per-view, I frankly really didn't know what to expect. I truly didn't. I didn't know where the WWE was going to go with this pay-per-view, how they were going to do with this pay-per-view, how I was going to feel about this pay-per-view. I don't think there's really going to be a consensus amongst the general masses in terms of this show. I think you're going to see some people that truly love this show and so many things about it and say, "What are you bitching about?" There are going to be those that thought it was kind of middle of the road. There were those that thought this was a horrible show and the same old shit, and a lot of different points in between. And my kind of perspective with this show is in some ways I'm almost still not sure what to fully make out of it. But I do know that there were some positives. There were definitely some negatives, some really funny moments to be, and some huge logic fails all throughout the show. This was a wide ranging pay per view to me. There's not like any one consensus train of thought to have on this show. It's kind of very much a Sybil pay per view. It really is. So many different things going on here. So I'm going to start off by talking about the positives of this pay per view and just blowing right through. You want to know who won what match? Go look at one of the dirt sheets that you normally would, anyways. I'm not here to talk about all that stuff. Okay. When we talk about the positives on this show, the first thing, there were plenty of good to very good matches on this card. There were 8 matches, of which you could probably say most people might look at 5 or 6 of them of being good or very, very good. You started off strong with Punk versus The Shield. That carried over to the Divas title match. That carried over into, surprisingly, a little bit Big E versus Damian Sandow. That carried over to the 4-team tag team championship match. You got a very hot start, a lot of good in-ring action on the show. If this is a show where you as a fan care primarily and only about in-ring action, then this probably was a splendid pay-per-view. It probably was. I do like the fact that there were lots of people on the show. I'm all for as many people getting pay-per-view payouts from the man as possibly can and finding a way to incorporate as many people onto your shows as possible. And part of that ties into having 8 matches on a 3-hour pay-per-view. The times to me where I see a 3-hour pay-per-view that only has 6 announced matches, I think that's very lazy and I think that's very silly and it's ridiculous and it cost a lot of the people in the company a chance and the potential to get some type of pay-per-view payoff for making an appearance on the pay-per-view. You got 8 matches. I do feel like it actually helps out the pacing of the show. I thought the pacing of the show was pretty solid as well. 8 matches in 3 hours. If you manage your time well, which I feel like in general the WWE did with this pay-per-view, then you get a lot more people on, and you still have the ability to have plenty of good to very good matches, and that's exactly what you got with TLC 2013. And ultimately, the biggest positive to me was once again the Rhodes brothers stealing the show. I mean, when you look at Goldust, his kind of comeback, the comeback player of the year in the WWE, if you will, no question about it. He has been phenomenal. He's been a scene stealer, a show stopper, if you will, and Cody Rhodes, the fact that he's going out there and he's putting on the best matches of the night in quite a number of cases over the past several months bodes very well for him, potentially squeaking a place out of the WWE's main event scene or in the top 5 or 6 guys scene in 2014. Those things do matter to the WWE. The Rhodes brothers are tearing it up, and they tore it up again tonight. Outstanding stuff. So those are some of the positives. Now let's talk about some of the negatives. Negative time. Oh boy. First one for me. AJ Lee still being the Divas champion. With the backstage incident this week with Michelle Beadle and CM Punk and AJ being batshit crazy like a lot of women can be when it comes to their guys, you would have thought, if they weren't going to do so already, you would have thought this would have been a perfect opportunity to take the title off of somebody who doesn't appear on your Total Divas show and put it on somebody who does appear on your Total Divas show. So, of course, the WWE decides we're not going to take the title off of this psycho, this freaking mark walking around like she's a professional wrestler. We're going to not put it on the one that appears on our mainstream Total Divas show that has a family lineage. Family's been in the business for generations. No, we'll keep it on AJ Lee instead. I don't give a shit. Good match or not, This is a match I felt could have used a ladder or table or chair gimmick in it. It's still stupid. AJ Lee being the Divas champ. I'm so fucking over it. It's ridiculous. And I don't see why everybody thinks she's so hot. If you're into girls that look like they're 14 and maybe aren't mentally all there, then you know what? Maybe go to a local middle school and pick up a girl. Why are you so into AJ Lee? I don't get it. I don't get it. Brodus Clay losing. Yeah, what I don't get here is if you're trying to turn Brodus Clay heel and make him into a monster, then that's fine. But why did he have to lose to do that? Why did he have to have the people turn on him during the match? Why couldn't he sit there, beat R-Truth in a dominant fashion when R-Truth really doesn't matter to you anymore? Speaking of that, what happened to Little Jimmy? Speaking of things that don't matter anymore, why couldn't you have Brodus Clay beat R-Truth, and then maybe afterwards he either celebrates and showboats in a kind of arrogant ass way, or he tries to go after R-Truth, he snaps, and that's when Tensai says, no, you know what, screw you, I'm out of here. And then the Funkadactyls go, no, screw you, we're out of here too. Anything to have the baby faces go over 80% of the time, 90% of the time, and the WWE is going to do it. Just it's like you take the potential to do something, and then you find the exact ass backwards way to do it. 3 of the 8 matches on this card kind of were like last second or last minute add-ons. Ms. Kofi, the tag title match, Brodus Clay versus R-Truth. They were matches. Now, if 1 or 2 of these were announced on SmackDown, to be fair, I wouldn't know because I don't fucking watch SmackDown. And plenty of people that watch Raw don't watch SmackDown either. So probably the first time they knew that 3 of these matches were happening was when they turned into the pay-per-view tonight. Come on. That's a little bit lazy. If you knew you were going to have time to fill when you're mapping out this pay-per-view maybe a couple weeks ago, you could have invested a little more time and announced these matches 1 or 2 weeks ahead of time on television. I'm just saying. Another thing that really bothered me is it felt like during the main event that I was watching an ROH main event. I mean, you've got Cena going through, getting hit by steel steps, and then he's AA and Randy Orton instantly into a table, and then Orton's RKOing him, and this shit's like happening bam, 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 bam. You're not selling. You're not telling a story. There's no consequences to the actions. I mean, Jesus H. Christ here. I get that this is the Breakfast Club and they go by a different set of rules. I get that. But good Lord. If I wanted to watch an ROH match along with the 200 other people that go to most of their live events when they have them, then I would go watch an ROH live event, main event. I tune into a WWE pay-per-view to actually see things, mind you, like psychology and in-ring storytelling. And seeing that type of exchange and that type of sequencing where there's repeated instances of no selling by both individuals in the main event, that bothers me tremendously. These guys are supposed to be the 2 flag bearers, the standard bearers, the best of their generation. And they don't even get the basic concept of selling psychology and in-ring storytelling during a damn match. I talked about the negatives. Let's have some fun and talk about some of the phony moments on this pay-per-view because there were quite a few to me, and at least me. Number 1 was the Brawling Buddies segment. Now, we all know goddamn good and well that Brad Maddox was screwed. He clearly was going to beat Vicky Guerrero there. But the look on Cade's face, and he said, how the hell did I end up here? What in the hell am I doing? You know what? We're starting to ask ourselves all that, Glenn Jacobs. That was funny. The boring chants that got started versus Miz and Kofi. That's pretty bad. And very, very funny. Mick Foley apparently demonstrating that he has indeed been hit in the head a couple too many times. I don't know who the hell he was referring to as Wade Bryant or whatever the hell he said. Wade Bryant. I hope that finds its way onto the next Botchamania. Also, Cena's underpants being red and yellow. It was like they were running wild all over Randy Orton. I guess Cena really was a Hulkamaniac as a kid. Another thing I thought was hilarious on this pay-per-view, as I'm looking at Twitter, and during the beginning portions of the show, I actually was tweeting quite extensively and then started to lose a little interest in it, so I cut it out. But I'm sitting there looking at all the people that used to work for the company, that still do work for the company, that are just tweeting about TLC like crazy, more than you usually would, to which I would ask them, did you think that getting on Twitter was resulting into a pay-per-view payout for you and a payday for you? Well, to be fair, maybe the WWE is giving you a payday for this, and if that's the case, then shit, can I get on that? WWE can give me $20, and I'll tweet about TLC in a positive manner all fucking night. $20. They're just sitting there, Austin's tweeting about it and all this other shit. I'm like, oh, good lord. And then, of course, at the very end of the night, you've just had this match that's 50 years in the making. And instead of the focus just being on Randy Orton and his big signature victory in the main event of a pay-per-view over Super Cena, you put the focus on Triple H and Stephanie and Vince McMahon. And what the hell was with Vince's walk there at one point in time? The old BMF walk went to kind of the, I don't know, is he had something wrong with them? I've been noticing it the past couple of years whenever I've seen him, like his left arm doesn't move as well as maybe it used to. I don't know what the heck that was, but as I'm sitting there and I'm watching and the show's being closed and I'm kind of left with a feeling, I'm laughing at the same time. I'm like, these fucking egomaniacs. They had to make sure that it ultimately ended up all being about the McMahons at the end of the day. As I talk about the different things, the positives, the negatives, the funny moments, perhaps the thing that's going to be most memorable to me with TLC 2013 are the glaring logic fails throughout this show. Like, number one, Roman Reigns earlier on in the show injures his eye when he goes flying over the announce table and into the chair and all of this. And when we get to the finish of the match with the Shield versus CM Punk, here comes Reigns getting ready to spear Punk, and you've got Ambrose standing behind Punk the whole time like a jackass, knowing that you've got this big motherfucking Samoan Roman Reigns bearing down on you, but you're going to stand right in the line of fire, knowing that if CM Punk moves out of the way at all, you're going to get bowled over. So even though Reigns is the one that has one good eye, Ambrose is acting like he's blind and or stupid. That made no fucking sense to me at all. Whoever booked the finish of that match was kind of dumb. Natalia and her gimmick character, whatever, not going for the pinfall. You already tried to put her in the sharpshooter once. Now, let's not forget the fact that AJ Lee is a lot smaller than Natalia, but yet she's able, when Natalia is applying the sharpshooter, to drag her ass from one side of the ring basically to the other. Get the fuck out of here. This is the reason people don't take wrestling seriously, is because of bullshit like that. But then after the sharpshooter already hasn't worked once, AJ Lee is out, and Natalia wants to beat her with the sharpshooter. You know what? After thinking about it for a little while, this character is so stupid, this character doesn't deserve to have the fucking title and doesn't deserve to have a title shot anytime soon. It's laughable. You've got a chance to win, you take the fucking victory, period. You got Miz and Kofi on this pay-per-view, TLC, mind you, and it was a no DQ match. Where were the no DQ elements? Where maybe even where, with it being, heaven forbid, tables, ladders, and chairs, you could have incorporated a table or a ladder or a chair, or a couple of different things. Why was this match no DQ again? Where were the no DQ elements in this? Why couldn't you put tables and ladders and chairs in here, one or two of them at least, in some capacity? Made absolutely no fucking sense. Then some of the other shit pertaining to the main event, I think, just reeks of epic logic fails. The WWE, throughout the whole course of the night, was trying to do everything they could to tell you that this was 50 years in the making. And they were talking about, you had Triple H at the beginning of the night talking about Lou Thesz and Buddy Rogers, but correct me if I'm wrong, the World Heavyweight Championship is not the NWA World Heavyweight Championship that Lou Thesz would have had back then. So your whole 50 years in the making logic makes no fucking sense. Does it? Not to mention the fact that I don't know if they're doing this for storyline reasons or they just clearly aren't paying attention to the details. But did we not just have somebody unify the WWF and WCW belts back in 2001, which is basically what these two belts are? That's basically what these two belts are now that were being unified tonight in the Cena Orton match. Didn't Jericho unify them? And then wasn't Triple H the undisputed champion? And then wasn't Hulk Hogan the same thing? Or wasn't Undertaker the same thing? Or wasn't Rock the same thing? Or wasn't Brock Lesnar the same fucking thing? And don't give me this bullshit. I saw JBL tweet this, and what a joke. Come on, John, you're better than this. Oh, it's a difference because now we call it the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. You tell people to get on the app. You tell people to vote, that their voice matters, and their vote counts, and you believe in First Amendment rights and free speech, but then when the people vote for the unified belt, you say, no, you know what, that name's stupid, the people are stupid, we're going to go with this instead. What the fuck? I mean, come on, man. And then you got Cena, he's sitting there, this motherfucker was able to unscrew the damn turnbuckle that he was handcuffed to by Orton, and he's pulling the rope up. But you're telling me that he can't manage to get the freaking belts down off the thing. This is supposed to be super fucking Cena. He's supposed to be able to do anything. He unscrewed this. He's moving around, getting up the ladder with this. And furthermore, why would he have to sit there and grab the freaking little, whatever the hell you want to call it, rack or whatever that both belts were hanging on? If you would grab the belts individually one by one and maybe rip them off with one hand, wouldn't that have the same damn effect? And don't tell me Cena isn't strong enough. We've seen Cena do all these feats of strength over the years. It's just fucking ridiculous. And then once we get to towards the end of the match, it was an incredibly awkward kind of odd feeling finish, wasn't it? Because Orton's just standing there and he's fucking waiting. You know, like, today, Junior, what in the blue fuck are you waiting for? You know, and I get the whole thing. You're Randall Keith Orton. I'm going to pose. I would have rather he sat there as he's sitting there and looking like a moron at the top. If he would have just broke out in a pose and then reached up for the belts. Because then I could have been like, you know, that is one arrogant, egotistical son of a bitch. Instead, he's just kind of standing there and he's looking. And then he kind of realizes. And then he slowly goes up. This wasn't Jack Swagger bad. But this was pretty bad, and it left a real awkward feeling to the finish of this match, and felt kind of flat. And I'm like, what the fuck is he doing? You got Cena down. Cena's done all this shit. They were no-selling all this shit, but now he's out for the count when his head barely grazed the table after being... Oh, come on, man. But perhaps the biggest logic fail of all still comes in with this pay-per-view. This is supposed to be TLC, tables, ladders, and chairs. You ended up with not 5, not 6, not 7, but 8 matches on this card. And with those 8 matches, you could only have one of the 8 tie into tables, ladders, and or chairs in any way, shape, or form. If you were really that concerned about something overshadowing John Cena versus Randy Orton, then maybe that wasn't the right main event. And ultimately, this was the main event for this show. This definitely showed to me that now that you've already had it once, we really don't need it again at WrestleMania 30. It definitely doesn't have that feeling of epicness. Any chance it had it, any feeling of epicness was ruined with the bad storytelling from the WWE over the past month. All in all, I will say this. This show was much, much better to me than Survivor Series 2013 last month. That's a positive, and I'll focus on that. I maybe could have come on here and buried a lot of things on this pay-per-view. I talked about a lot of them, but I could have really hammered home and buried a lot of the bad things on this pay-per-view. But with as bad as Survivor Series was, you come back a month later, at least this show was markedly better. A lot more good to very good matches and some other good things. You got more people involved. You know, you had more funny moments on the show too, frankly. And even some of the logic fails I find funny. So that's the type of stuff that sometimes entertains me that maybe a lot of you don't like out there. WWE can do a lot better. And in 2014, the WWE needs to do a lot better, in my opinion. But at least this wasn't Survivor Series. We'll go with that.